Yo, what's up everyone? Daniel Yuck here. Thank you all for tuning in today. I appreciate it. Today we are on the episode 4 of the follow along series. As usual, this design will be in the description below, so that way you can go ahead and download it on your end. You can go ahead and follow along and we can go ahead and develop our skill sets together here. Now, with that being said, we're going to go ahead and run through the motions per usual. We're going to go ahead and put this stencil down on this practice skin. We're going to go ahead and just proceed accordingly per usual. Now, I'm going to go ahead and use the trusty speed stick. So for those who are following along, know that I use a speed stick on fake skin and I use stencil stuff on human skin. I'm putting this here to divide the tattoos here, so that way we don't interfere with this other tattoo from a previous episode. And I'm gonna go ahead and saturate it here. Now, for those who are curious on how I apply these stencils, I made a video on how I approach this. So if you haven't, be sure to check that out. I will go ahead and link you in the correct direction should you need help figuring out where that video is at. So for this, again, I'm saturating the stencil stuff, the speed stick on my canvas here. And I feel that that is a good amount. I want to make sure that I have more than I need because I'm going to remove some right now. And again, for those who don't know, this is the 4th episode of the follow along series. These designs are available for download in the description below for you. Now I'm going to go ahead and remove some excess here accordingly. The reason why I remove excess in a nutshell is so that way we don't have the stencil bleeding too much and the stencil comes out fine, so that way we're able to see the entire stencil. And how I do that is I use typically the light and I'll eyeball the amount that I need. So a few more wipes, we should be good. And then I'm gonna go ahead and place the stencil down as best as I can here. It's a little bit bigger than the canvas, but it's okay. We'll be all right. And then from this point forward, I'm just simply going to press down, as you can see. I don't want to press too hard. I'm not trying to push the paper into the silicone. I'm just simply applying a bit of pressure all around where the details are at, making sure that the purple part transfers with the applicant. And then I go ahead and I remove it slowly. If you followed along with every episode, then you're very familiar with how I do this. And then I'm gonna go ahead and see how it's picking up. See, so over here we can use a little bit more pressure there. I think all around right here. Not that it's not sticking, but I did not have an excess amount of speed sticks, so pressure may vary. So as you can see, we have a beautiful stencil. This lever here, we can go ahead and just freehand the rest of that in there. But as you can see, this came out great. What I am gonna go ahead and do is I'm going to place a shop wipe over the stencil, so that way any excess ink or anything that may be there, we can go ahead and remove it. So that way we reduce bleeding. I'm not wiping, I'm simply pressing. So be sure once you put your hand down, you don't move it, you don't wipe it. I'm just applying more pressure to pick up any excess deodorant that may be there. And as you can see, it picks up that. And I'm gonna go ahead and now I'm gonna let this rest for 12 to 24 hours. We are gonna go ahead and we're gonna come back. We're gonna figure out the configurations that we need. We're gonna go ahead and proceed per usual. So at this part, please be patient. Wait the 12 to 24 hours. When we come back, we will go ahead and proceed to finish this tattoo. We're doing this simply because once we get to tattooing, we don't want the stencil to wipe off. So that's why we're gonna go ahead and leave it for that amount of time. If you have any questions below at this point in the video, please feel free to drop them in the comments below. I will do my best to assist you in the best possible direction. Also, If you didn't want to go ahead and wait the 24 hours every session or every episode, what you can go ahead and do is go ahead and navigate to the next episode, pause the video, and then go to the description below, download all the stencils, put them on one page, print them out, and then you can go ahead and lay them all down at once. So that way on every video you'll be at the exact same spot. So you can go ahead and put them wherever you want, however it works best for you on your end, on your practice skins. But that's just a little tip there. Should you want to have a quicker process, you can go ahead and print them out all at once, and then you can go ahead and proceed accordingly to divide them as you should on your end. So now we're gonna go ahead and wait. We'll be back shortly. We are back 24 hours later, maybe 23 and some change. What I'm gonna go ahead and do is show you all how I remove the stencils. If you followed along on the previous episodes, then you'll know I'm using simple Vaseline. And what I do is I work the Vaseline into the stencil itself here. So that way it loosens up the darker tint of the stencil, and I'm left with a very, very faint and light tone of the stencil. Why I do this is because in the past when I didn't, I would do tattoos and I wouldn't remove the stencil from the fake skin. I would work my way from the bottom to the top. By the time I got to the top, the stencil was already too dried out that the purple was actually permanent and it just would not come out. So what I do now is I like to not remove it completely, but I like to have a very, very faint line that doesn't wipe away. So that way I just simply match the configuration, the needle configuration, to that line size, and then it basically covers it, and the stencil is non-existent. And you will go ahead and see that by the end of this tattoo. We'll go ahead and go over everything in depth. I'm going to give you all my thought process per usual. We're going to stick with the same format. We're just gradually doing more complex designs. And as you can see, as I'm wiping away here, I'm left with a very light stencil. And I'm not worried. This is basically where I want it, because when I do go over these lines, like I stated, with the proper configuration, you're not going to be able to tell that there was a stencil there. And that's exactly what we want, because if you're going to present these tattoos, you want to be able to present them in such a manner, in a professional manner. And as you can see, that's basically where we are now. That is perfect. That's exactly how I would love to work with my stencils. This stencil right here is going to be available for download. So go ahead and click the links in the description below. You can get it in multiple formats that best suit you on your end. So I have an assortment of needles here. I'm going to be using a 7-round shader. I have a 9-round liner. I have an 11-round liner. I have a 3-round liner. And I also have a 9-round shader and a 14-round shader right here in my hand. So I am going to be using a different assortment of these needles right here to achieve and complete this tattoo. You on your end, you can use one configuration. However you choose to go about doing this, I'm not going to tell you the specifics. I'm not here to tell you right or wrong, but this is just the setup that I'm going to be using. I'm trying to be as transparent as I possibly can throughout this video here. So I'm going to be using, or starting with the CNC Q3 with the Rain 14-round shader, and this is the InkClaw wireless power supply right here. I'm at 7.5 volts, and I'm going to set my needle depth, and I want my needle to hang out a bit because I'm going to be pushing shaders with this specific tattoo machine. So I like the way that that depth is. From this point front, I'm going to proceed and I'm going to wrap the machine so that way we can get to completing this tattoo. So let's go ahead and fast forward here, and we will proceed to set up and basically figure out the configurations and what we're going to use, where we're going to use it, and why. So my Q3 is now wrapped, and as you can see, came out great. We're now ready to go ahead and continue doing this tattoo. Where I am going to begin is basically working my way typically from the bottom to the top like I would normally. So what first comes at me are these smaller lines right here. So I'm probably going to work my way around this way and then onto the banner, to the anchor and the heart, or I can choose to start right here on the bottom leaves and then work my way out that way. I think it's going to be completely subjective. So where I'm going to begin is I'm actually going to begin in this area right here, and I'm going to do this side of the anchor. I'm going to start with the Rain 7-round shader, as you see right here. I will leave links in the description below for these needles should you choose to check them out. Excuse me there. So I'm going to insert the rain there. We are going to be pushing at 7.5 volts right now. So again, I'm going to start from down here and then I'm going to work my way up to the top here. I'll pull a couple of lines and then I'll bring you all in up close per usual. Let's go ahead and proceed. Now I'm just taking this nice and slow. I have to remind myself every tattoo to take my time, be patient with the shaders or any line that I pull. Be patient. There's never a need to rush it. So I'm going to do a couple of leaves right here and then I will bring you in up close so that way you can see an up close view here. Very nice, very smooth. I don't like to have my needle cartridge overflowing with ink because I don't like the pools under my needle. And how I avoid getting those pools under my needle is I have a limited amount of ink in my cartridge, so I dip just the tip of my needle into my needle cartridge. I'm going to leave that line there and do the inker first. I'll come back to that because I don't think I initially need to put that in there right now. Now I'm going to do this last petal and then I'll see if I can get a better angle to bring you in up close here. Every line that I pull, I remember to take my time prior to pulling, so that way I'm not in any rush to get this line done and I know that I can saturate it on the first go as best as I possibly can. Now let me go ahead and put the machine down and see if I can bring you all up close so you can get a better view at what I'm doing down here. So I'm gonna bring you up to this angle right here. Should it get more difficult, we'll adjust accordingly. So I'm going to, I just get, small increments into my needle cartridge or into my needle tip. I don't like to overflow because I don't like the pooling of the ink on any canvas. I like to keep it as clean as I possibly can keep it. So I'm going to go with the circle, taking my time to pull this nice and slow as there's little room for error. And if we mess up, it's okay. We just proceed accordingly and adjust. And I'm always making sure that I have enough ink in my needle tip. Since I don't fill it up all of the way, I'm going to take my time each and every pull, making sure that I get nice saturated lines, as that's what's important, because that's what people are going to see, that's what people are going to read when they first see the tattoo. And that's basically how I am looking at it right now, which is reflecting, I'm thinking of the read of the tattoo, and that's reflecting the way that I input the ink. So as you see, I'm just really taking my time. Let me see if I can bring you up close here. So I'm really just going to take my time, and from A to B every way through this little part of the rose here, or the flower rather. A, B, making sure that I saturate where I go, so I don't have to go back over it again, nor I'm not going too deep. I'm making sure that I keep a consistent depth as well. And then I'm going to A and B. I'm sorry if it keeps getting out of focus here. Let me see, bear with me. So let me come over here. So I'm just gonna A and B it. So A to B. As you see, just making sure the ink saturates the area that I need to saturate. Doing great. And I'm just basically repeating this process continuously until I reach stages of the tattoo that I need to change the needle or do something different. And then A, I'm gonna go to B over here. Let's see if we can do it in one pass. So again, just pulling lines and applying this as best as I possibly can. I have to focus here. So, should this awkward angle not work out, we will go to the top view, because the top view will always work. I'm gonna go to A and B over here, and this B is a little bit off of the skin, so it is a bit challenging, as you see. So very nice, very clean. I'm just trying to be as consistent and as patient as I possibly can when applying any tattoo, and I think that's really what it is. I just do my best and I take my time with it. So for this right here, I'm going to apply A to B. Again, you have to have a certain level of confidence. You gotta have a level of consistency here when I'm pulling lines like this here. Now, this is coming out great. I love the way that this is coming out. I can even go to the 9-round shader and do the anchor, or I can stick with the 7-round shader and kind of just do everything with the 7-round shader and have that bold look to each their own. I remember on episode 3 we used a configuration. We may approach it the same way here. So right now that we got the flower pretty much outlined, there is a spot from here to here. This is a part where you have to ask yourself, and this is fully subjective. You can go back and line all of the rose areas should you choose, or the details right here, or you can use a different configuration for that. I think just for the sake of this video and this demonstration, I'm going to finish and line them with the same configuration, just to kind of simplify and keep things practical don't get me wrong, you can change the configuration. You can apply a different, needle sizing there should you choose to do that. That's fully subjective, but I think for this video right now, for the demonstration, I think this is going to work out just fine. So as you see, just very straightforward, very, very simple. And again, this is fully subjective. We're going to repeat the process on this side. Making sure that I have enough ink in my tip to run evenly. I have more than enough, as you can see. And I don't like that. I don't like when my needle pulls up like that. It makes it more difficult to see what's going on under. Now I'm going to personally proceed and do the same thing with this over here. This leaf, we're going to repeat the process. Nice, smooth. Steady, consistent lines. Yeah, nice, steady, smooth, and consistent lines, as you see. Now, I hope that this has been in focus here, so forgive me if it hasn't. I'm definitely trying my best to make sure that I can get everything that I possibly can. Now, proceeding front, I can switch to a 14 round shader, an 11 round liner. I don't think it really matters. The 7 round shader looks great all around. I can proceed and do these as a, under the 7 round shader, or I can use the 9 round liner. Originally, when I had saw these lines, I had originally saw a 9 round liner in mind for this, so I'm going to switch to that. I'm going to put a 9 round liner on, and I'm going to outline this part right here. We may switch and do an 11 round liner over here. We may do this under what we don't know yet. So overall though, again, this is fully subjective. Me personally, I think an 11 round liner would look cool. To each their own. You could even do this entire episode right here with a 1 needle. It does not matter, to each their own. So what I am going to do is I'm going to approach this with the 9 round liner, and this is going to be a CNC Police 9 round liner, as you see right here. And this is going to be a standard 9 round liner. We are using the CNC Q3 as well. Still going to push at 7.5 volts. And I'm going to begin with these flowers right here. So let me back away a little bit.
So even the 9-round liner definitely has a bold look to it. And as you can see, the tip of my needle as the ink, I don't get much ink into my needle tip, as you can see. That's just straight from the tip right there. Very, very tip, just straight black a little bit, not too much at all. And I make sure that I keep that same amount every pull, so that way I don't have a big pull under. And I just repeat the process all the way until I am done. I feel like I can be it here. And if I'm ahead of you, or if you're ahead of me, don't even worry about it. You can pause the video, fast forward, rewind, do what you need to do to keep the flow consistent for you on your end. Now, I'm not sure if this is in focus or not. However, I may feel more comfortable doing this above, so that way I can zoom in and you can kind of just see from above. So let's switch to the top view, so that way you can see a full view of what I'm doing, as opposed to having focusing issues. So we're in the top view. I figured it'd be better to come up here, so that way we don't have any of those issues that we can prevent. And I could adjust easier as well. So I'm going to do this pedal now. Just making every line that I pull nice, slow, steady, and consistent with voltage, hand speed, and needle depth. And when I say needle depth, I'm talking about how much I put it into the skin itself. Sound is everything, so you can hear it as well and know when, when you're pressing, or when the pressure is more than you need. Basically, sound is everything. If you hear, you'll know what I'm talking about. You just listen for it, and right there, you'll know the sweet spot. You'll know when too much is too much. So if you're listening for the right thing and feeling for the right thing, you'll know where to put the ink. So I'm just gonna continue building. Now at this point, I can come down here and do these petals, or I can do them with an 11-round liner. I don't think that it would make a difference. So I'm going to save these petals, and I may do all of them with an 11-round liner just to keep some cohesiveness here. And I'm going to build these flowers. Now I got a little bit too much ink, more than what I typically would like. And when that happens, if I'm doing this on a real human, I'll use a dip cup to remove excess. Now, circles are very difficult, so I tend to put my focus into them when I'm applying circles, so I can do them as best as I can. And if yours is not coming out the way that you want it, or you're not happy with your results, don't worry about it. Just keep going. Don't get discouraged. Keep pushing through this right here. And I'm just going to proceed and just keep building this tattoo. So just steady. If you feel that you can do one pass lines all the way, by all means, feel free to go ahead and do so. to each their own. You can taper in and out. We will get more into that as well. I think I'm gonna do a little bit more ink here. And I'm working off the tip of my needle, making sure I get to the right depth. And then when I get to the right depth, I keep it consistent and then just pull the line as best as I possibly can. It's a system that I follow each and every time I put the needle into the skin here. I'm going to get a little bit more ink. And as you see, I'm just taking my time. Each line takes me a little bit to input, but I'm okay with that. I find that when I take my time and I don't rush is when I don't have to go back and correct anything. When I A and B it and I make sure that I do as best as I can, and especially when I get that accuracy to where it's exactly the way that I want it, then the process is so smooth and the tattoo heals really well. As you see, this petal I didn't feel comfortable doing it in one whole pull, so I'm switching it out into 2 different lines here, and I just tapered it in. That's exactly how I do that. And I always make sure that I connect my points. I don't like to leave my points disconnected, as that does read in the tattoo. So do your best to connect every single point from A to B. These little things are important. All of these little variables, like pulling the steady, consistent line, making sure they're nice and saturated, all of these little things matter and add up to a great tattoo. Just nice, steady, and consistent as I possibly can get it. And again, I'm not claiming that these are the only way to do things, or this is how you should be doing, or anything like that. That's not my intent. I'm just simply sharing my thought process and workflow with you all, and doing these tattoos with you all. So we are going to proceed, and I'm going to do these leaves as well right here. And I'm just going to keep building along my way. A little too much ink. And I'm just going to keep building as I go here. Making every single line as consistent as I possibly can. I need to get a little bit more ink into the tip here. May have been a little too much. Just taking my time with each and every line that I pull, making sure that every line I pull is as best as I can get it, so I don't have to go back over. We haven't switched to the Q1, we're still running the Q3. So far, so great. So we have a few more petals here. I'm going to proceed and get those done as well, making sure that I have enough ink in my tip to proceed. I'm just really taking my time, making sure that these lines that I pull are nice and saturated, even. Making sure that I just, again, apply them as best as I possibly can. A little more ink here. And then I'm going to just add these other ones as well. As you see on my end, this last one didn't fully stick, so I'm going to just kind of have to freehand the rest of that leaf there, which is not a problem at all. Again, just taking my time, pulling these lines. I'm not feeling the need to rush. Nothing like that, just doing what I need to do to make sure I effectively and correctly apply these lines without causing damage to the skin. You know, I'm just thinking like that. Then I'm going to repeat the process on this side, and then we have one more. We can proceed with the next part of the tattoo here. Now we're going to do the last leaf here, and we can proceed accordingly. So I'm going to start with the middle one here, simply because I don't have the rest of the leaf there. So I'm going to use this middle part as the foundation. I'm going to use the middle part as the foundation right here to keep me in line here. Like so. So that's how I'm going to approach that last leaf right there. Put in these last details. And always take your time, never rush. So we got those going right there. What I am going to do is I'm going to switch the configuration out. I'm going to get the 11 round liner, so that way we can proceed to do these leaves right here. So for this, we're going to use the Police 11 round liner. Now the Police 11 round liner is going to be right here. Let's open that up. Beautiful needles. I did a full in-depth review on these, so be sure to check that out if you haven't. We're still running with the Q3 for right now. Should I feel we should change, we will do so. I'm going to bring the skin up right here. So now for this specific part, we're going to do these leaves all around here with the 11 round liner right here. So I feel that depth is okay. If I don't like the depth on this specific run, we will switch it out to the Q1, just because I can switch the depth easier on the Q1. Very nice. I think that's gonna look well with the 11 round liner all the way around. And we just proceed and build as best as we can all the way through. Very nice. So I don't know why the 11 round liner configuration always takes me a little bit to adjust to, but it's one of my favorite configurations. It's very, very weird. So let's proceed here. As you can see, that 11 round liner is looking nice though. Steady and consistent, as best as you can pull the lines all the way through. So you just keep building your tattoo. Again, this is just how I do it, A and B, all the way through until I'm done, until I've reached the desired results. Then we just proceed and so just very patient, taking my time and putting the lines as best as I possibly can. I'm going to do these up here as well now. And that 11 round liner looks great for those leaves right here. This one's right by the edge, so it's hard for me to get a good light on it. Still came out good. And I'm just applying these lines, and again, nothing special. I'm just fundamentals, just being as consistent as I possibly can. Each and every time I pull these lines. And again, as you see, I'm just applying it as best as I possibly can here. You need to beat every step of the way through. Makes it a lot easier. Making sure I have a little bit more ink here. Just A, B every step of the way. And again, I'm just doing as best as I can to be as consistent as I can. Some of the main variables that I'm thinking of right now to consider upon pulling lines are your hand speed and voltage, of course, the needle depth, of course. So those are some of the main three. Just to confirm, that's hand speed, voltage, and needle depth. Now on top of that, you want to always be aware of how much ink you have in your reservoir here or in your chamber, so that way you can always make your A to B's as well. So those are some of the main variables that I consider every time I'm pulling a line. I feel like I kind of brushed this part a little bit. So very nice so far, so great. I love the way this came out. Now we have a couple of ways to go. We can use the 9-round shader for the banner, the 14-round shader for the heart. There's quite a few ways to go about it. What I think that we should do is right now we should probably use the 9-round shader for the heart, and then we should use the, let's see, what do we have available? The 3-round liner is going to be for the shading, and then we have the 14-round shader and the 9-round shader. So we should probably use the 7-round shader for the anchor here, and then we can use the 9-round shader for the heart. So we're going to switch to the 9-round shader, and let's do the heart outline real quick. Or rather, let's switch to the 7 round shader, forgive me. Let's switch back to the 7 round shader and let's do the anchor to get that part locked in there. So this entire tattoo, we've been running at 7.5 volts here. Now I'm going to repeat this process for the entire anchor here. A to B, all the way through. I feel like I could have been a bit more consistent with that line. And you can adjust accordingly. If you feel like you need to go back over a line, by all means you do so. So what I decided to do was use the 7 round shader for the anchor, use the 9 round shader for the banner, and then use the 14 round shader for the heart. So that's how we are going to go about that. Q3 is running great right here. as you see, every line I pull, I just pick a spot where I feel it's practical to tattoo next, and then I start lining it. So as you see, I was just tidying up that area, trying to keep this clean, but that doesn't seem to be working. I'm going to proceed and do the side parts of the anchor with the same needle. And again, every pull, I'm just trying to remain at the consistent speed, depth when I pull this line, so that way the line comes out nice, even, cohesive, and consistent. Just trying to be as consistent and cohesive as I possibly can upon applying all of the lines here. Now you could have, again, done this with one entire needle. That's perfectly fine. I just feel, since this is a follow along and somewhat of a demonstration of different approaches that we can take, I feel that it's just best to offer multiple configurations so that way we can visibly see what it looks like as well together. I feel like that adds a little bit more value as well to you all. So as you see, very, very nice, very cohesive. I'm working my way to the top of the anchor. We will be there shortly. So the Q3 is pushing like a champ, no issues, no complaints whatsoever. You all been with me the entire way so far, and she's purring, she's doing great. So now from here, we're going to switch to the well actually no, forgive me. We're going to run to the top part of the anchor. I know in episode 3 I got a bit more fancier with the configurations up here and changed them all, but for this one we're gonna approach it a little bit different. Not everyone's gonna be the same or similar. I believe I'm just gonna approach it with the 7-round shader for the entire top piece here. I dislike circles very much so, but they are good practice. I don't like though when my ink beads up at the bottom. As you can see, I was in hyperfocus there, so we'll get that part done. We're going to proceed and then just do this part of the anchor as well. And again, I'm just doing as best I can. Now I am A and Bing my way every line I pull. Even though I'm not saying it out loud, I am doing that. That's a technique that, or my approach in terms of how I apply the line doesn't change. The only thing that actually changes is the design. So again, I am A and Bing my way through. So just wanted to point that out as well. I'm going to proceed and line that. I'm just making sure that I have enough ink. Just taking my time still, nothing changes, and I just keep pointing that out because I don't feel the need to rush, which is why the video probably is gonna go on for a while. But as you can see though, we are not rushing. Every line pulled, just taking my time. Making sure it's cohesive and saturated. Making sure it's exactly the way that I want it. And again, just to confirm, you can use one needle, like say an 11 round liner for this entire tattoo. should you choose to do so. There's nothing wrong with that. So we have that part of the anchor done. Now what is next is going to be the heart and the banner. So we can grab the 14 round shader. It really technically doesn't matter which needle goes next. We are going to get to where we are going. So for this, you can grab the 9 round shader or the 14 round shader. Again, you're going to get to where you're going. I feel we should do the 14 round shader last, and then we should do the 9 round shader next. So we have the 9 round shader right here. And again, we're still gonna run the Q3. Still running at 7.5 volts. And we're going to start this banner. As you see, the technique stays the same. The only thing that changes is me. I adjust my hand speed and my voltage, and the needle configuration changed as well. So I adjusted my hand speed and my voltage to the needle configuration at hand. In this case, a 9 round shader. Very nice, very consistent. Very nice. Every time after I'm done pulling a line, I always look at my ink to make sure I have enough ink in my chamber here. Because one of the most frustrating things that I experienced is when I pull a perfect line, but I forgot to put ink or enough ink, and the line didn't come out saturated just because there was a lack of ink. Not because of the technique, but because of the ink. So that happens. Just be sure that you are constantly checking. Make sure that you constantly are checking to make sure you have enough. Forgive me there. And then we're just going to proceed and get this banner on top there. And as you see, I'm just taking my time all the way through, and I'm just being as consistent as I possibly can. The more I practice, I notice the better we get. That's just with anything that we do. So if your tattoo is not coming out great or you're not happy with your results, I encourage you not to get discouraged. Just stick with it. Practice every day. Like, look how slow I'm pulling this line right here to get a nice consistent line that I can present. So I encourage you to just be patient, practice, and keep practicing, so that way you can get this done. That way you can tattoo. There's no way to get good, you know, you just have to build the skill sets up. Some people are a bit more natural over others, yes. However, you can still learn. So just keep going, don't stop. And none of my lines are perfect. Like, nothing I do is actually perfect, nothing. So I'm okay with that. And knowing that, like doing a tattoo in that headspace, knowing that I'm not perfection, it gives me more confidence to do my thing. Slow and steady, nice and consistent. As you can see, you got the banner on there. It's looking great. So one more needle configuration. We could even just stick with a 9-round shader should we choose and do the heart. But for the sake of demonstration, I think that going with the 14-round shader is the way to go for this. So let's go ahead and proceed and let's make that happen. So we're pushing the Rain 14-round shader, same voltage. We haven't changed the voltage at all. I'm just gonna start connecting this heart in the background here. Still pushing the Q3 as you see. As you can see, I just want to point out, like, nothing that I do is perfect yet again, and I don't let that get the best of me. I don't let it discourage me. Excuse me. When I first started tattooing, though, at any mistake, I would get highly discouraged. Now I let the artist in me take over, and I figure out how I'm going to correct it. So I try to figure out the best plan of approach over wasting my time dwelling on the mistake I made. If you think you're one of the only tattooists that makes mistakes, I've spoken with several tattoo artists that have worked in shops for years, and I've asked them if they make mistakes on clients, and they openly admit that they do. And one of them said something specific that stuck with me. One of them said, like, once you get to a certain threshold and you get enough experience, fixing it kind of just comes natural, so you don't really panic about it. And the more that I tattoo, I don't fully understand it right now, but I'm sure throughout my years I'm going to start understanding that more and more. Forgive me there. It's very difficult to relay my thoughts and tattoo real time with you all. But moral of the story is, don't let your mistakes stop you. Keep going. Finish the tattoo. As you can see, steady, smooth, consistent lines. We can go back in there and finish that last leaf here shortly. But overall, the outline is now done. The outline is complete, and it came out great. I love the way that this outline came out specific. It's very nice. I'm going to clean it up a little bit here because I want to be able to give you all a more accurate representation of what this looks like. The Q3 ran nice. It pushed all these shaders and liners with ease, no problem, as you all see right here. So overall, we have a very nice outline. It came out great. I am going to personally take a stipple approach and use a 3-round liner. I'm going to use a CNC Police 3-round liner, which is a standard configuration to apply shading. I will go ahead and go about showing you all how I do so. But overall, as you can see, we came out with a nice outline, a very, very cool outline right here. I'm eager to see how yours came out, so be sure to go ahead and email them to me at yuckmadethis@gmail.com so I can go ahead and check them out. I'm just going to finish this little petal right here, and that would officially been the outline. We will proceed to shading after this. Now, for those who are curious if we've blown this skin out right here, that's what the back looks like. We have not, maybe borderline, but we've never broke through this entire skin right here, which is a plus with the multi-passes that I've done. And as you see, it's a very, very thin skin. So that's the reason why I like to practice on thin skin, is so that way I know that my tattoos are getting on there correctly with no blowouts. And granted, this doesn't happen all the time. Like, sometimes I will get a blowout, and that's okay. I do get bummed out when I get blowouts on my practice skins. However, that's why I just keep on practicing. I don't, again, waste too much time dwelling on my mistakes. But I just wanted to share that with you all. I felt like that would be cool for some of you all to see. Now we are going to dive into the shading. Like I stated, we are going to use the Police standard 3-round liner to go ahead and achieve shading. So let's dive into that, and I'm going to go about showing you all how I would approach this. So for the shading, I'm actually just going to stick with the CNC Q3, and I'm just going to drop the voltage down. So we were at 7.5 for the entire tattoo. For this voltage, since I am using a 3-round liner, I'm going to drop it to about 5.5. 5.5, 5 volts even. So that's what I'm running. Let's proceed accordingly now. And I'm just going to begin shading. Now with shading, I used to always overthink it, and it's possible that I still can overthink certain aspects of a tattoo. As you saw earlier, I was going to begin to overthink the configuration, and I kind of just rolled with it. Now for this, I'm just going to begin where I see the most apparent shading, which is going to be right here. I want to leave negative space around the leaf, so I'm going to approach it a specific way right here. Now I'm going to, for this specific tattoo, I'm going to have all of my darker parts on the top of the tattoo. So I want my darker tones at the top for this specific tattoo. Just to simplify everything, darker tones go at the top. So that's how I'm going to approach it. From Correct episode 3, we did the opposite, where darker tones were at the bottom. For this one, we're going to change that around. And your dark tone, you can choose where you want your darkest point to be. You know, you can choose wherever you want that. Just because I chose the top doesn't mean you have to have yours there. If you feel more comfortable only working shading from the bottom up, by all means, you know, go with what's better for you. As you see, I have a nice shade right there. And when I'm working on fake skin, I don't, this specific one right here, I don't really use a gray wash system. I use just straight black. So that's what I'm doing, and I'm just working off the tip of my needle with the technique and stacking these dots over each other, so that way we get a nice shaded look there. And as you see, I'm leaving negative space around the leaves here. So that's how I'm going to approach that. And then I'm going to proceed very subtle shading there, but it makes all of the difference. And it looks really, really nice. And I'm going to pretty much approach every leaf like that, where I leave a negative rim around. So very subtle, very nice as you see, and I'm just taking my time per usual. Every tattoo, I can't exhaust how much I take my time. If the client wants to rush me, then they're gonna leave with a partial tattoo. And if a client, I always think to myself, if a client ever rushed me during like a tattoo, it'd be very hard to line up that stencil, especially if it's something that I wouldn't freehand back on. Then the client would kind of be in a bind, and I would just explain to them the exact situation and let them know, you know. But as you see though, just taking my time still, I'm not rushing at all, and I'm just putting the shading where I feel it's best going to fit here. Very nice, very cool. And then I'm just going to proceed and keep doing that the entire tattoo with my darkest points at the top there. So I'm going to proceed and do the little leaves right here, and I'm going to start with, I'm sorry, the little flower right here, and I'm going to start in the middle. And I want to leave negative space around. And I don't even need to make a full circle. I can implement just a little bit of shading here, so that way it has a resemblance of light over trying to fill all of this in as a circle. Either or, to each their own. You can take whichever approach you choose, but for this, as you see, I'm going to approach it like so. Very nice, very easy, very straightforward. And again, with the darker part on the top, and I'm going to approach pretty much all the circles like that as best as I can, doing my best to make sure they're all cohesive and similar. And then for here, these petals are going to be fairly straightforward. Since the darker parts on top, I can just whip these out right here, leaving the negative space. And if I do that a few times, I should have them where I want them. Shouldn't take me too many passes here to get these correct. So as you see, that's perfect. I'm going to keep moving to the next. And forgive me for the awkward angle. Let me move it back for you. Very cool, very nice, cohesive. Not rushing any part of this tattoo, just fully taking my time, like so, making sure that I'm leaving my negative spaces where I want them, all of the above. And then for like the banner right here, you can actually just stipple this down like so. Typically when it's when it's a leaf or the inside of a flower or something like that, I would want to leave a negative space. But for this banner, you can approach it either way. For this banner, I'm not going to necessarily leave a negative space. However, since the dark parts are coming from the top, I'm going to make a fade down. So that's what I'm going to do. That's how I'm going to approach the inside of that banner there, with a gradual fade here, as you see. And that's just for this specific part of the banner here. Now moving front, I'm going to proceed and finish these flowers up there. And the banner, I may leave some negative space, but for this part right here, you kind of just want to follow the same motions, leaving negative space around right there, as you see. And again, that's just fully subjective. That's just how I am looking at this. That's just how I think that this is going to look cool. So that's the idea behind it. And again, that's why it's just fully subjective. It's just my artistic approach. Very, very nice, very smooth. And then I will go ahead and get to the banner here shortly, but let's get to the flowers. And I'm going to repeat the process over here with this one. Just draw the half circle on top as you see. And then just going to fade it out like so. Very simple, very straightforward. And I'm going to repeat that process again with all of the flowers there. The petals are very, very simple as well. Let me see if I can blend this better. And then the petals is just simple. Since the darker tones at the top, flipping it this way. And again, we're still running the CNC Q3 right now. Now, I hope this angle is not awkward for you all. And I just repeat the technique until I get the desired effects. Very nice. And with the petals, the darker part could be on the inner side all the way around. That I don't feel that that's going to really matter. I think that would look best. So like for example, this one right here, I'm doing the same thing, keeping the darker portion connected closer to the inside of the flower here. And this is going to be fully subjective. This is going to vary and to each their own. Everyone's going to see this differently. Again, this is just how I see it. This is a follow along. I'm sure where you put the shading, you may not fully agree. And then right here with these, I'm going to do the same thing. Make sure I apply shading here. So that's how I'm going to approach that. Very nice, practical, and consistent here. Remove the excess there. And I'm going to have that approach with all of the flowers, or with all of the, flowers there. So very nice. I like the way that the shading is coming out right now. And again, I hope that this angle isn't too awkward for you all. We're going to proceed. I'm going to manually put these lines in here. Just kind of draw them in there to create division with the petal there. Again, same technique, just different petal. And I'm not overthinking it, I'm just applying with a very practical approach as you see right here. Trying to keep the thought process and approach as practical as I can. So as you see though, just a nice practical approach. I don't want to overcomplicate it. So as you see, I'm just naturally filling out when I'm done. There's no specific formula or protocol that I'm following. I'm just sticking to the application in which I take to apply the stipple approach, and then from there, it's just eyeballing, and the artistic side in you really takes over, and you'll know when you're done, when you don't want no more, you don't want no more stipples. When you do, you do. You get my drift. It's very, very direct. If you find yourself like overthinking things, take a step back and just remember practicality. Everything should have a why. Like, if you should be able to answer why you're doing it this way and why you're doing it this way. And if you can't, then you may want to find a different groove. So as you see, those are coming out nice. Those flowers came out great. For the leaves are very simple. You can do one of two sides. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stipple with a very simple and effective approach here. And I'm going to do half of the leaves. So since I want the darker tones on top, I'm going to divide the leaf in half like so. And then I'm going to do one half dark, and then this half up here dark as well, fading into a lighter tone. As you see, like so. And then you just repeat until you get your desired effects. So that's how I'm going to approach these leaves here. It gives them a nice, soft, subtle shading as opposed to just leaving them lined. And they all get the same area, the same, area shaded. Very nice, soft, simple, practical. And then for these leaves up top right here, I'm going to do the same thing. We are going to approach it the same way. Nothing's going to change. So we're going to do this side and just work the shading in. Like so. And then same thing right here. Just giving it a subtle, soft shading there. I will bring you to the top view so we can take a more accurate look, because I know that you're like right close to the tattoo, so it may be hard to see over what I'm seeing. And that's basically how I'm going to approach the shading for all of the leaves. And then this one right here, you can change it accordingly. I can put the darker shade right here. Like so. And then, same thing right here. Just working the shading in as best as I can to give us a soft, nice, subtle shade there. Very, very cool, very, very easy, very, very practical. Okay, so we're going to proceed now. So all of the leaves up here and the flowers is pretty much the easy part. So we can knock that out right now and proceed to do that. I'm going to do it as best as I possibly can. without distorting the design. So when you're shading in tight spots, that's basically one of the reasons why I go 3-round liners, so that way I can get into tight spaces and really get accurate with my shading as I like to do so. So as you see, I'm just applying layer after layer of dots until I get the desired effect. Making sure that I take my time and I get a good, nice and stipple shade, as you can see. Now let's go ahead and switch over. Well, I guess the angle's not so bad. We could stay right here. I was gonna switch to top view, but you're real close and the angle's not too bad. So I'm going to approach this right here the same way as we did the other ones. And for these, I'm going to put a darker tint up here in the top, referencing back to I want the darker tones on the top there. Very, very nice. And I'm just gonna go ahead and work my way up all the way through until I complete the leaves right here. So the Q3 is definitely holding its own though. And I threw lining at it with multiple shaders and round liners, and it lined effortlessly with no problems. I'm doing some stipple shading right now with nice transitions as well. I'm happy with the results. Very, very cool. So as you see, very, very nice. And I'm just building my way up this tattoo, and I'm just working my way around the entire tattoo as best as I can. Very simple, very straightforward. I'm going to complete that lastly before we proceed to do the anchor and everything else. And then right here on these, since I want the darker tone on the top, I'm going to make it a little bit darker like so. Then we're going to finish off with this last one right here. So as you see, I'm just stacking the shading where I see fit, applying the last of my darker tones here that I want in there. Now forgive me if I keep pulling it off camera here. Very nice, very easy, very cohesive, simple, practical, and straightforward. And for the leaves as well, you just want to have the same approach, or at least I'm going to. Same thing. Same approach. So that's how I'm going to approach the leaves and all of the flowers right there. So next what we have to do is the banner, the heart, and the anchor. So let's knock the banner out since that's right in the front. Now for the banner, I'm also going to leave a negative space around, but I also want the top to be the darkest. So I'm going to essentially line out where the shading is going to be. That's how I'm going to approach it, just basically drawing a barrier, creating a barrier where I'm not going to cross. Very simple, very straightforward, very direct. So what I'm going to use this for is that's my foundation in which the shading is going to stay in. I know that I want the darker tones on the top. So I'm just going to stipple out now using that guide, as you see from the top, and then starting working my way down, filling out the middle of the banner there. And we will go ahead and add some cross hatching to fill everything out as well. But you get the drift, you get the idea. So that's basically what I am doing. That's how I'm going to approach shading this banner right here. So I'm laying out the first layer, the foundation here. So it's essentially the first layer, and then I just start stacking and building over that, combining and layering the dots so that way it makes one cohesive look overall. So right now I'm cross hatching to help me fill the space more evenly while still shading, and it helps me define my tones a bit better as well when I cross hatch. So that's why I cross hatch in this specific spot. That's the purpose, and that's what it's helping me do. So the shading is coming out nice. So as you can see, I cross hatch that way to fill up all of that spot, to put some shading there. And then I can go back and then just fill it out with downward motions. That would fill it out even better, as you see. So that shading looks nice, consistent, all the way following the border. Which is why I went to go and put that soft line at the beginning. And then from here, I'm just going to follow the border as best as I can, while whipping out the machine in the downward motion towards me. Just like that, as you see. Nice, consistent, cohesive. So you can proceed accordingly now. Now we just want to keep building the darker tones on the top. For this, I can go to the hard, I can go to whichever part I choose. I'm going to proceed, and we're going to do this part of the anchor right here. So the same thing, I'm just going to leave that negative space, and I'm going to build up the foundation. I laid the foundation, now I'm going to build up the shading. So I'm going to cross hatch right here, as I want my darker tones on the top. So very nice, as you see. So steady and consistent. I'm going to just layer another layer over that until I get my desired effect, and then just repeat that process pretty much with the entire top part of the anchor. Proceeding front, I want this to be just a bit more smoother, so I'm going to just apply a little bit more. And I also see some spots that I want to kind of darken up as well at the bottom of the tattoo, in this area right here. And this is all just personal preference. So very nice. I'm going to proceed. I just want to darken up these sides right here. And so just giving this side a bit more darker of a tint, because I do want the darker top, so to speak. And again, this is just fully subjective. This just makes sense to me. That's exactly the way that I want it, or very much so in the ballpark of what I'm looking for. And again, I'm just using the very, very tip of my needle. Sometimes it feels like I'm just brushing over the fake skin here. So that's what I'm looking for right there. All of it's coming out nice. What I'm constantly noticing, like the thought that goes through my head is every little line matters. Every single part that I do and every single shading or line, whatever the case may be, stipple, dot, everything matters. Like I never put the needle down just because I think that the ink should go there. I feel it out for the design. So for example, on this design with the shading, let's use that for the example. I knew that I want my darker tones at the top, so I let that guide my choice pretty much every step of the way here. And in terms of where I put the shading, that's fully subjective. And we'll make a completely different video on where we put the shading and basically why, as there's multiple variables that I would like to actually cover on that. But for right now, this right here is where I'm putting the shading. I'm just kind of getting this into the ballpark of where this is at right here. Cross hatching isn't necessary, however, if you feel like you can add it, go ahead. And every single little line matters, so even if I'm just doing it like this and kind of just scraping over the top of the skin there, that matters. Every time you put the needle into the skin, essentially, that's what I mean. It should matter. It should, be for a reason. And then I'm repeating that process over here, and as you see, that top part up here is where I'm pressing harder, and I'm pulling the machine out as I go. I can essentially create the foundation here. So the entire way through, I'm just keeping a very practical approach, making sure that every time I put the needle in, I'm taking my time, and I know exactly where I want to go from A to B with stippling. Just do as best as I can to apply the shading where I see fit. And as you see right here, shading with some precision, and that's why I choose to use and go to the 3-round liner for shading, simply because I like that it feels like a brush more so over a tattoo machine. Even though I am holding the machine and I do feel the vibration, the approach is a bit different for me and my thought process. But as you see, I'm just building up this area right here because I want it a specific way. So I'm making sure that I'm laying out a nice foundation that I can gradually just put the desired effect over. I don't need to rush to my desired effect. And if this was on skin too, the skin would be more susceptible to the passes. However though, this process, since we are just using the tip of the needle, we are essentially scraping the shades into the skin, so to speak, in a way where we don't cause trauma, but we do get our desired effects, and that allows us to have more time over the skin as opposed to pulling lines and breaking the skin open direct, like just going straight in with the needle to pull that line. So that's why I also like stippling, because it gives us a lot more time in the skin. So as you see, we have that part. I'm going to repeat that process over here on this side as well, doing the same thing. Nothing really is going to change but the motions and direction, but we are still keeping the dark points at the top. So I'm going to start off like this, pretty much. And then we are going to wrap it around. Now you can choose to leave as much negative space as you want. I like to just leave a border, like, border even. I don't overcomplicate it. It's something that comes natural to me to envision. So whatever is more natural to you, I would run with. So I'm laying down the foundation for the top part here. And then for the middle of the anchor, since we want the dark parts on top, I mean, it can be multiple ways in which when I get there, I will go over. how I see that. But again, like shading, there's multiple ways that you can go about it. I truly don't feel like there is, I truly feel like there isn't a right or wrong way to approach shading. If it looks good, then it's good. I think that it becomes wrong is when you're going for a specific look and you don't achieve that, or if your shading comes out blotchy and not smooth. I think that that's, you know, kind of entering that wrong area. Let's proceed here. Now this banner here, I can even touch it up a little bit right there, should I choose to do so. Now, this came out great. For the middle of the anchor, there's multiple ways that we can approach it. We can approach it with touching the rim from the top and then bringing it down, leaving a negative space right here around it. And we can do that with both, which is probably what I think we're going to do. But at the same time, I'm not going to fully touch the top of it. I'm going to leave a negative rim around. That's one way. You can put the shading on the side should you choose to do so, having the dark side on this side. Again, there is no right or wrong. It's where you choose to put the shading. So for this, what I am going to do is I'm going to essentially stay in here. And then I'm going to just cross hatch over here. That's how I'm going to approach that. Now right here you can see a little bit of the streaks from when I was laying my foundation, which is why you always want to start softer. So for that, I'm going to softly go over it with some cross hatching to blend it in, and then just repeat the process. Like so. And then repeat this up there at the top as well. That may be way too impressive. So the best way to approach this right here is just pulling lines down and then making the arch naturally, as opposed to drawing it out as I did the first time. To each their own. You may feel comfortable laying out the foundation like I did right here. So that's how I'm going to approach the middle of the anchor right there. You can even darken this one up should you choose to do so. The tones is all going to be subjective as well. For the circle, there's many ways to approach that as well. The heart is going to be a bit tricky, and the rest of the anchor, this right here, is going to be a bit tricky since it's so dense and the heart is kind of hiding in the background. So that is going to be a bit tricky, and we're going to approach that as well. But for the circle here, there's many ways to approach this, and I'm going to approach it like we did in episode 3. But instead, I may not put the shading all the way around. I may just taper it out. We'll see when we get there. Now, since I do leave a negative space, it makes the shading far more challenging, but I do like that. I do like that I have to push my abilities and the precision and, you know, where I'm putting the shading. So I think that that'll make for better skill sets. Now for this circle, I want to kind of have a different approach. I don't want to have it so even this time. Bring a little bit closer. So I'm going to do what more so feels natural to me here and what I envision, and I'm going to have the shading fading out to the bottom over here. With the darker tone at the top. That looks nice. I like the way that looks. See, so you can always have a different approach. It doesn't necessarily, you don't have to always have the same approach. Making sure that it's a practical approach. The reason why I did it this way is because, so the darker tones I stated were at the top on this one. So I figure that if I put the shading out here and shade it out this way, it will reflect like such. It will, and it just has to be executed correctly. And the ring will be darker at the top, fading out to lighter at the bottom. A completely different approach. We did leave a little bit of negative space, and as you see, that looks great. I can continue and I can either connect the lines to right here should I choose to do so, or I could have left it as is like that. To each their own. That's where it comes down to, you know, that's subjective. Nonetheless, though, that was my approach because I got this sort of look, and then I can go in and just darken the top ring up there as well. A bit more to differentiate from the bottom that we're implementing right now. So a simple, practical approach. I do like the way that looks. It looks great. And then up here, I want to take some time and darken that part up like so. So subtle, but to me makes a big difference. These little details matter. This goes back to every time you put the needle in to the skin, it should matter. Like it should contribute to the piece, not take away. So very nice. I like the way that ring came out. Proceeding front here, and you could even like blend it in with a technique where you would do this. You can stop right there. It blends it in a little bit. Then you can do it where you begin and then do the top part instead up here. So to each their own, like have fun with it. Make sure it's just practical. I'm trying to make it more great. That came out nice. So proceeding front, I did save the anchor or this part for last as it is rather confusing. So we know that we want the darker parts on the top. We know that that's where everything pretty much is. Basically that was our guide. So with the darker tones at the top, we're gonna have the same approach right here. So I figured that we leave a negative space around, or you can go from edge to edge, to each their own. That's fully subjective. Let me actually, before we continue with the heart, I just wanted to go back and make this a bit more cohesive. I think if I do that one more time, it'll look great. Although it looks nice right now, to each their own. You know, this is again fully subjective where you want your shading to be. And just a reminder, I am using the very tip of my needle So I just wanted to touch up that part right there. So let me make some room so we can get a better angle and look at the heart here. Now, for the heart specific, it's going to vary and it's going to be subjective. For me, I'm not really going to overthink this. I'm going to dive right in. Now, I think that having a negative edge would be the best way to approach it, just because simply everything else pretty much has that aesthetic to it. So we should stick with that through the tattoo. And again, even if you just black out the heart, that'll look cool as well. I'm not gonna do that for this demonstration though. To each their own though. So for this, and as you see, there's really tight pockets here. So you have to know where we're shading and why we're shading. So I'm going to begin up here and I'm just going to start with the foundation. And again, the darker tone is on the top. And what I'm doing is simply setting the foundation. And basically this is going to guide me where I am putting the ink. Now, for the heart, I'm only focused on the negative line being within the heart. I'm not focused on the negative line with the objects. That's something that we may want to pay attention to. Again, I'm not focusing on the objects. I'm focusing on the heart and the negative space with the heart only, just to simplify it. So if you're struggling, if you feel like you shouldn't go to the top up here with the anchor, by all means you can leave that there. But for me, I feel like for more, again, aesthetically pleasing look, I'm gonna go with this method and this approach right here. So what I'm doing is I'm just building my layers until I get the desired gradients that I like, the desired transitions and tones. That's all I'm doing right now. I'm just essentially using the same technique, the tip of my needle, just to build layers over the skin. Nice soft layers here. And just to confirm, this video is real time. There's no fast forwarding or anything like that, which is why it's hours, probably. I don't know how long it's going to be, but I just assume that it's going to be hours. And then now I'm cross-hatching here, putting in the darkest tones at the top, making that apparent here. While I am putting in more textures and filling more space. Like so. Now this part is very straightforward. It's just simply building the tattoo up until you get the desired effects. As you can see though, these little subtle shadings do make all the difference in the tattoo. It gives it for a nice, soft, subtle look, and to me I like that. I like to, typically I would like to specialize in like complex, real dense line mandala style tattoos with shading like this, whether I'm doing dot work or stippling. And it's real soft and subtle, but it's there where it adds dimension rather than, you know, a soft look like this. So I'm a big fan of this sort of shading here. It goes well with a lot of styles as well. I feel like you can combine it with bold lines. You can use it in mandalas. You can use it in floral. And the list continues. You can even use it in lettering. Whatever, you know, mix the style with whatever you choose to do so on your end. Now over here, I'm just going to define this a little bit more. And then throw in some cross hatching right here as well. And then right here in the top, it's very tight. So I'm going to do my best just to add shading as best as I possibly can while still leaving a negative rim around, which may be rather difficult. Let me fix the angle here, sorry about that. As I tattoo, the foundation tends to move here. Very nice. So that's how I'm going to approach that top part of the heart, as you see right there. Very nice. And I try I just as best as I can to leave a negative rim. Sometimes it gets a little bit tight, but when I take my time, I find myself making it out all right there. So same thing, leaving the darker tones at the top. And as you see, I'm simply using downstrokes to lay the foundation. As you see, we have a nice foundation laid out there. I'm going to repeat that, and the downstrokes, I try to keep them as consistent as I possibly can. And then I always go back in with some cross hatching to tune everything up to give it that nice, cohesive, shaded look there. The nice transitions. So when you cross hatch here, I'm making sure that I go around the crevices that I implemented there. Like so. So you see we get a nice textured look there, as well as a transition. I'm going to go over that more in thorough depth for you all in the video that I have coming up soon. But for now, I'm just basically walking you through my process here and what I'm doing. Very straightforward. So as you see, that one's looking nice as well. I'm gonna leave it like so. I don't want it too dark. And this is just my approach. You can approach it, completely different. Should you see it differently, by all means, to each their own. For this specific part of the anchor that's right here, I'm going to leave negative space. So what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to keep this one simple, but still effective. There. Where sorry about that, I got into the thought process of how I was going to approach this. Basically, what I'm doing is I'm leaving the negative space around and laying down the foundation so I can go back in and tighten up that middle area and make it more darker up there. So right now we are just laying down the foundation, making sure that we leave a negative rim as best as possible. And leaving that negative rim is not easy. So for me, I like to take my time. As you see, I got quiet and I focused on the rim. When I do tattoos, like on canvases or people in real life, I'm not there talking away or talking up a storm. If they ask me a question and I can answer because my headspace allows me to do so, I will. But yeah, they typically understand that I'm not there talking, and nor is the client really talkative either, as they're getting a tattoo. They hurt, all of them, every tattoo hurts. So that's how I'm essentially going to approach this right here. That's how we are going to approach that anchor side. And again, I'm just keeping everything practical, simple, straightforward. I'm not overcomplicating it. I'm not trying to do anything secretive or special. It's just a simple approach. I'm putting the shading here because of this, and just that's the approach. It's not complicated. I just want to reiterate that. And for this one right here, I can just do a few little flicks up from right here. That would add a little bit to it. Doesn't have to be much, just minor. Darken it up a little bit there. And then the same thing, we're going to proceed and just do this last part here. So for this area, there's many ways to do it. For this heart, what I'm going to do is, I already knew how I wanted to do this bottom half. So I'm going to essentially do it like we did in episode 3, where I part the heart out like that. And upon parting it this way, I just simply laid the foundation. So now I know that I'm going to stay within here. And I'm going to take the shading down instead of upwards, as I want the darker tones coming from the top. So as you see, just lay the foundation out, and I'm going to repeat this process right here until I get the desired effect. Again, I'm just using the tip of the needle. I can throw a cross hatch in there now, should I choose to do so. And this one is going to touch the top here, simply because it's in the same area in the proximity of the banner, so I feel it would be more cohesive to do so while still emphasizing that negative line here. and having the darker tones on top, like so. So very nice, very straightforward here. For the side of the anchor, this side we're gonna approach it the same way as best as we possibly can. And I don't know, something about that negative rim with the stipple approach, like I'm not sure if I mentioned that, but I really like that look. So that's why I use it. I like applying it. I like the transitions. I like the overall look of it and how it reads on majority of tattoos. So that's why I choose to stick with this specific style of shading. And then I'm going to repeat that over here as well. Very nice, very simple. I can't exhaust, like, I just, again, try to have a simplistic approach. I remember I used to always overcomplicate the shading, and then I would literally either never shade, I would be scared of shading, or my shading would come out horrible. And as you see, I'm literally thinking about where I'm going to put the shading on the fly as I'm doing it on the video. So if I mess up, you all are going to see it. And that's not where my headspace is at, though. I'm not focused on messing up. I'm actually focused on knowing the fact that the darker shades, I want them at the top. So with that being said, I let that guide my choices. Very practical, very simple. Like, there is a system to everything that I'm doing here. And for this, I'm going to approach it the same way. Putting more pressure as I go on the top over the bottom, and, you know, lifting up at the bottom there. So has a nice smooth transition. So what I'm doing here is laying out the foundation of where the shading is going to be. And forgive me if I don't complete my sentences here when I'm tattooing, it's because I get into it, so I can only like be one place at a time mentally, so it's very difficult for me to kind of talk and explain here, so I apologize for any of that there. As you see, just applying here, I'm leaving a negative rim. And if you're wondering how I get a soft shade and transitions, is I'm using the tip of my needle. I'm using the needle, and this is just straight black ink. I'm using the tip of my needle to apply pressure where needed to build these layers up. There's nothing special going on or anything like that. So that's exactly how I'm going to approach that spot right there. I like the way that that came out. I can add more right here to the top, making the top part a little bit darker should you choose to do so. Again, that's going to be fully subjective and 110% your choice. From here, we have just this part of the anchor, and we are pretty much home free. Now for this, I'm going to approach it the same way. As you see right here, I'm going to leave the negative space right there. Just shade this spot out, as you see, because it's from this part of the heart going that way. So we're going to emphasize this negative space here. So as you see, simple, straightforward there. I can make this side darker since I do want the darker tones on top. Like so. And then for this part of the anchor, I'm just going to keep it simple. I am going to leave a negative space around. I feel by leaving negative space around that would provide the best aesthetic there. So I'm going to leave a negative space around here. As you see, I'm essentially laying out the foundation without putting in any actual lines. I'm using a series of movements in the depth of my needle, the tip of my needle, to set this out here. So very simple, very straightforward. I'm going to actually now I'm just building up until I get the desired effect here. I'm just taking my time. Then I'm going to cross hatch to kind of even things out there. That looks nice. I'm going to proceed front here with these other two. Now for this one, you can approach it kind of like the way you did the anchor tips, and you can sweep it from this way to that way. You keep like a very nice thin line here as well, should you choose to do so. Or you can shade from the top down that way, should you choose to do so. My bad. Should you choose to do so, it's not either here or there. For this one, I'm going to actually change it up a little bit, and we're going to start from the top, leaving the negative at the bottom. Okay, so you are on camera there, on frame. As you see, I'm just literally building up the gradients the way that I want. And then on the anchor in here, I'm going to leave the negative space around in there. So I feel like adding just little subtle changes like this in the art is definitely not wrong or right. So that's why I wouldn't fixate on a specific, you know, choice for this one. For me, it felt right, it felt natural. Like that's more of the practicality behind it. I feel like it would differentiate better right here. It would separate this from this right here. So this part from this part, it'll add a little bit of interest, which is why I went with that there, or this specific approach. And then I'm going to make it a bit darker there, as you see, and then I'm going to repeat the process on this side. Just like that. Very nice. And then on this last part of the anchor, I'm going to proceed and leave negative space right here. So I'm basically just laying out the foundation and where the shading is going to be. Very nice, very simple, very straightforward and direct. So that's how I would approach that side right there, and then going into here, just establish the foundation where I don't want to cross over into. Very simple. And then I'm going to finish this part by shading this anchor and having negative space right here. So we're gonna come this way. Just like that, to kind of make it one cohesive flow. So that's the idea behind it. Even there, I can hit it with the green soap and call it a day. I'm going to shut the machine down and clean it up here. Let me bring you up close so you can take a look at it. So here is a top view at the completed product right here. I feel the tattoo came out great. Episode 4 went well. I'm very excited and I'm very eager to check out your tattoos on your end and how they came out. So be sure to submit them to my email. Don't hesitate, don't hold back. Send them on into yuckmadethis@gmail.com. yuckmadethis@gmail.com. I'm very, very eager and excited to check out your works of art on your end. This is how mine came out right here. If you are still tuned in, I genuinely appreciate the support. If I didn't touch base on anything specific that you may have wanted to know at some point throughout this video, please don't hesitate to drop it in the comments below, and I'm going to do my best to assist you in the best possible direction. I also have social media. I'm under the same name under all social medias at Daniel Yuck, DanielYuck, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. All social media platforms under the same name. I would appreciate the support and follow on there. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring that bell for me, as I will be bringing more videos like this. Thank you for tuning in yet again. I appreciate your support. You have a great day.